diverse workforce, first of all, brings different problem-solving approaches. It brings different connectivity amongst the team, different engagement with the employers that brings less turnover, more profit, and definitely a sense of belonging from the employee, and a fantastic stable staff to the employer. And all these things are actually very relevant to any business anywhere.
Before we get started, the team here at the Coast and Commerce podcast want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land where this podcast is created, the Kabi Kabi and Jinnabara people. We honour their rich culture of storytelling as we share the inspiring stories of business leaders across the Sunshine Coast. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. Let's get on with the show. G'day and welcome back to the Coast and Commerce podcast. I'm Ben Amos from Innovate Media, and on this show, it's designed to help you do better in business on the Sunshine Coast. And this is going to be a fascinating episode, particularly if you're employing anyone on the coast or you're considering employing anyone, because we're joined by Stella Romagnoli, hopefully I got that right, who's the coordinator of the Diverse Queensland Workforce Program. So a lot to talk about our migrant community here on the coast, and also how that's really a benefit to us as employers on the Sunshine Coast. So, Stella,
yes.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Ben, and great being here and having a chat about what my passion is about.
Can you tell me a little bit about you, first of all, like a little bit about your story? So
okay.
I assume you haven't been on the Sunshine Coast all your life. And tell us what brought you to the coast.
Long story. It's going to be 28 years soon. So I came with my young family and husband and 4 kids, and all of them finished, they studied here. And of course, those days we went through the challenges and barriers of any migrants then and now, but there weren't really almost no support whatsoever. So a lot of struggles in starting businesses, in getting employment, in understanding how the system works in Australia, create connections, and that sense of belonging that is so important for someone that moves, and from the other side of the world.
So I assume it was from some sort of personal experience that led to your passion now for, working in the space that you work in, or what was that moment for you that made you realise I can try and do something?
Yeah. It was, this passion comes from a personal experience because my husband was very well recognized member of the corporate world in our country of origin, and when we came here, even though seeing a lot of benefits for the family, for the both of us as an adults, we could not actually recreate the type of work he used to have in Uruguay. All his merit, accreditations, experience and expertise were absolutely non-visible to anyone, and it was really something very very damaging emotionally to be a person very high end of that spectrum one day, and 18 months later delivering newspapers overnight because he could not get absolutely anything else. So big learning curve, big lessons in humility, but I think that we can do things better. Particularly now and here with many other tools like technology.
So tell me about the Diverse Queensland Workforce. What was that program set up for? Like, what's its aim?
Okay, this program is run and sponsored by the Queensland government. Is a program that we are entering the third year now, started exactly in 2022. Is a program that has proved very successful in other states. In Queensland is relatively new and is very, very easy to describe the program. I call myself a matchmaker because the aim of the program is to match migrants with employment. We all know the story of the civil engineer driving Uber. We don't want that. We can do better. So what the program aims is to put the workers of this program. We are a team of 3 people, and we are based very close by at Baringa Community Centre, where we can actually guide and connect this person with employability, and at the same time, local businesses with the selected staff.
So you mentioned there, when you talked about your own story and your husband's story, that that disruption, that feeling of, you were able to, achieve certain levels of career and success in your home country, and then you come to Australia and it was very difficult. Is that the stories that you hear time and time again? You mentioned that story of the civil engineer driving Uber, your own husband, from corporate world to delivering newspapers. Do you hear that time and time again still today?
Unfortunately, yes, Ben. This story is still replicated so many years. Still there are challenges and barriers, particularly social barriers, wrong perceptions, and there is still, a layer of discrimination towards migrants, and particularly with English as a second language. Like my case, I came with no English at all, and actually that is actually look like prevalent to some employers that are not prepared to put a little bit of patience and space in their daily working life to actually give that kind of support to a person that is absolutely learning everything from the ABC to learn and perform and be successful in the end. But thank God, there are many people that actually see the value in bringing someone with different perspectives.
Yeah, well, one of the key reframes I want to provide our listeners or viewers today is to maybe think differently about the migrant workforce on the Sunshine Coast. So in your experience, both through the Diverse Queensland Workforce Program and just personal connections and stories you've heard, what benefits does the migrant workforce bring to the Sunshine Coast business community?
Well, I think that any business objective is increased benefits. And it has been massively researched that a diverse workforce brings exactly that. Why? How? Many situations, many circumstances. A diverse workforce, first of all, brings different problem-solving approaches. It brings different connectivity amongst the team, different engagement with the employers. That brings less turnover, more profit, and definitely a sense of belonging from the employee, and a fantastic stable staff to the employer. And all these things are actually very relevant to any business anywhere. But here in the Sunshine Coast, we really need to actually access that and adopt that mindset.
Mm. And what are some of the, key challenges you hear from employers as well who are open to, considering migrant workforce or employees from other countries, but but maybe they're holding back for some reason.
And absolutely, yes. And there is a long story here in Australia of challenges, situations in terms of migration and migrants, even though we all read and hear that migrants made this country, and this is a multicultural pot and all these kind of things. But the Sunshine Coast has been a little bit different in that sense. So the key advantages for employers are that a person coming from a different country will create that bond with the person that first provide that opportunity that connects emotionally with a sense of belonging that can be decades of working for the same business and having the same employer and employee for many, many years. And that is an absolutely advantage. But the challenges, many people think that, for example, employing a migrant is very complicated. It is not, and one of the benefits of the program is that we, as the team of Diverse Queensland Workforce, go through the whole process of checking documentation, having a really good intake process with every person with a approach that is case management. We talk to the person one-on-one for hours to be absolutely sure the expectations of that person are realistic, that the titles, experience they say they do have, we can check that accurately. If there is a possibility to have accreditation in Australia, we guide that person to go through the process. So it is really quite simple and is easier connecting with us from both ends. From a business perspective, some businesses are keen to actually sponsor an employee. But many years ago, or not so many, but a few years ago, it was really, really challenging, was extremely expensive, very complex process. Nowadays is simpler, cheaper, and we can, without recommendations, but we can point out here on the coast different immigration lawyers and agents that can actually create that fabric where the two parts meet and benefit in both ends.
Yeah, so you mentioned there the idea of sponsoring a migrant into Australia, and
sorry, I interrupt.
Yeah.
Not into Australia.
Right.
I'm talking about a sponsorship with people that are already in Australia.
Right. Yeah, that's a good distinction.
This is a different scenario because we are actually working and supporting those migrants that are already in Australia, living in the Sunshine Coast with all the accreditation already sorted.
Yeah, okay, that's a good distinction.
Yeah.
Because I think that does raise a whole bunch of red flags for employers,
Yes.
right? Because of uncertainties and because of complications and because, my own personal experience, here as well is you put an ad out on Seek for a position, and a good portion of those applications that you get in typically are from people that don't even have rights to work in Australia and maybe don't even live in Australia. And
this is a good point, Ben. Yes, and one of the I would like to clarify. We the program has 3 very distinctive eligibility criteria: be a migrant, living in the Sunshine Coast, with working rights.
Yeah.
So when a person comes to us and requests an interview, a conversation for us to have an assessment about that person, if this individual is eligible for the program, definitely has to be living in the Sunshine Coast with working rights.
Yeah, excellent. So for an employer out there that they might have some vacancies coming up in 2025, or maybe they're scaling and they're looking to, increase their workforce, what's the best way for them to to connect through as an employer to the services that you guys offer?
Look, I think that it would be fantastic. Is actually contacting a Baringa Community Center. Very easy to have that contact details anywhere. We are there based, but our program covered the whole Sunshine Coast geographical area. So I am actually driving to Noosa tomorrow for visiting a potential employer. I would like, my role as a coordinator of the program is to connect with potential employers. I really like to see the places where because I understand that we do have a duty of care with both ends, the employer and the employee. I would like to see what people manufacture in the Sunshine Coast, what are the services available, what those working in hospitality. I would like to always see, the workspaces to come back and share that knowledge with the potential candidates and said, look, I think that this is for you, this is not. So in some ways, I think that there's a lot of potential and is connection as well. So the best way to contact Baringa Community Center, mention or my name, Stella, or Diverse Queensland Workforce, and the person at the phone will connect us immediately, and you will hear from us very soon.
Excellent. And tell me about the type of employer or the type of business that you think is right to consider a migrant employee.
Okay, so from our cohort of people, we have from someone that never worked in her life due to cultural issues and is keen to work at the moment. So no training, no experience, but there are jobs that, to people with PhDs.
Right.
And everything in between, and every field, and from laborers, and lots of people with high levels of education. Why? Because the Sunshine Coast is open to skill visa holders. So those who apply from anywhere in the world as a skilled migrant have to go to regional areas. And Sunshine Coast is a regional area for immigration purposes.
Yeah. So if someone is, looking to hire a position, and maybe, they're looking for someone with a specific skill set, and they can't find it. We hear that in a lot of industries, that we can't find the right workers. It's really hard to find good staff, with this kind of skill set. And maybe they're looking to, recruit from interstate to bring people from, down south.
Right.
What would you say to those employers about maybe their misconception that there isn't a skilled workforce there in the migrant community?
Yeah, great question. And I think that one of the biggest opportunities is, as an employer, as a business, you have to pay for sick. Our services are for free to both ends, to the employer and to the employee. So you can contact us and say, look, I need this and this and this. So our team will go through the books, and we may or may not find that person, but we will try. And one of the things that we already experienced is some people, let's say an engineer, of course there is specific engineering jobs, but there are a lot of opportunities for growth and for changes within. And some migrants came with a very specific idea of completely changing what they were doing. So there is a lot of transferable skills opportunities as well. So I think that is opportunities for everyone. And contact me, call me, and we will have a chat. And we might not have the person right there and now, but it might come, in the future.
Yeah, and apart from the obvious benefit of not having to go through SEEK, which I think anyone would be happy with that, you mentioned other benefits as well of, potentially very loyal employees, is one that you mentioned before. obviously you can get the right skilled employees too, potentially. But what are some of the other benefits? I think you also mentioned like the cultural benefit to the workplace of bringing
And
that
actually, someone from a different cultural background always bring the conversation. In my case, for example, is my accent. We can master the language, not my case though, but we never get rid of the accent if you migrate after 12, 13 years old. So that's when your vocal cords are actually mature enough. So the reality is we always can actually start that conversation and the accent is, well, where are you from, why you are here, all these kind of things that in a healthy workplace are not needed, but I find out that it's very beneficial to have these conversations amongst employees and between employee and employer, because provide a better connection amongst the staff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, words like diversity and inclusion are not just buzzwords. Well, they shouldn't be just buzzwords, right? They actually do equal better workforces and better businesses.
It should not, and you are right. And we can actually focus here. We know the Sunshine Coast, 75% of the businesses are really medium, small businesses. So the big businesses and some of the mid-sized businesses do have people and culture, and these conversations may or may not be out there, but they do have a person that is employed to actually create that. But we have to focus on the mom and dad's businesses or the small employers here. And this is something that is very, very relevant, that we focus on walk the talk. Because nowadays, it should be in every business mission and vision to have this kind of benefit of equity. But sometimes that is not the reality. So another thing that I offer is a part of the program as well. I do cultural diversity conversations in the workspace. It's something very, very loose, very casual. I do enjoy doing that because, and there are no silly questions. Every question is great to answer because it's actually showing everyone that we are all here in this village trying to connect and to engage, and everyone needs a place to belong. And these conversations are really relevant. So if you're a business, if you want to have this conversation with your staff or your board, because it has happened in the past, I'm happy to step in and say, yeah, let's go, we can do it Friday afternoon with a sausage sizzle after work, if it's a factory, or any other time of the day or the week. I'm happy to actually create a bit of, awareness in this cultural diversity space.
Yeah, and conversation, I imagine, like just the conversation that sparks in a workforce is probably super valuable too.
It is, because again, it's actually people being in a safe space, asking questions that sometimes they are not feeling safe or feeling comfortable or confident. So I try to actually, offer that to be totally at ease with the conversation, and there is no wrong question and no wrong answer, but we need to actually start this conversation.
Yeah, fantastic. So tell me, let's talk about how your organisation, both Diverse Queensland Workforce and also we'll mention the Sunshine Coast Migrant Hub as well. How do you support migrants to the region as well, just for those listening?
Great, yeah. So the Sunshine Coast Migrant Hub is actually the umbrella for the Diverse Queensland Workforce. But that brings with different components. When a person contacts us, sometimes it's a person, sometimes it's a family or a couple. They are, let's say, recently or relatively recently arrived. We have at the moment a pattern that is highly skilled migrants that have lived in Sydney or Melbourne for, let's say, 2, 3, 4 years and moved to the Sunshine Coast. So they find that the Sunshine Coast is like Mars, completely different planet in terms of job availability and ways to apply for jobs and success in the job search. So many times this person, 18 months down the track, are hitting rock bottom emotionally, financially, and they come to us because it was a last resort. Someone, talked about this program, and we do have quite a few crises every now and then, and we all cried because it's very powerful seeing a person that is highly educated and is desperate to work and desperate to belong, and there is nothing that he or she could do without getting employment. And successfully we have had the absolute chance to help a lot of people and particularly families. So when the person comes for the job is definitely the component of and the main aspect of the program, but we have an incredibly good fabric connecting with many other services and providers or connections that we do have in terms of if the person has a particular hobby, we can connect that person with someone we know, or housing is one of the biggest problems, and unfortunately we still see cases where a person cannot rent a house because of the color of the skin, and I am talking here and now, and this is something we really are very very keen to actually create a much better Sunshine Coast in terms of equality and equity.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you've just touched on there is probably one of the key things that personally I feel we need to do better on the coast with, because anyone who travels to Sydney, Melbourne, increasingly Brisbane as well, we see so much more multiculturalism and so much more embracing of other cultures coming into Australia. Really, on the Sunshine Coast, we're starting to see that, but it's not there. And it should be.
It's not there. And that's one of my quests is to, whenever my time comes up, to leave this Sunshine Coast better equipped. And I am seeing this really in the, and I have to say that probably COVID, one of the very, tiny things that COVID left in a beneficial aspect was this, that migrants are actually better regarded, and because of it was a COVID visa at that point, and migrants benefited from that enormously. Those who wanted to stay, for example, in the past, pre-COVID, international students, working holiday visa holders were not eligible for pathways to permanent residency. Nowadays, after COVID, they are. Of course, they have to go through a lot of hurdles and prove a lot of things and pay a lot of money, but if they are eligible and they can follow that path, they are eligible and they can become permanent residents. And yes, the Sunshine Coast has been behind and it still is comparing with other regional areas, so very much so.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And thank you for the work that you do and your team as well at the Sunshine Coast Migrant Hub and the Diverse Queensland Workforce. If there was one final thing that you'd want to say to any business owner out there, and the audience of the Coast and Commerce podcast, they're typically running businesses, they're employers, or they're probably going to employ someone in 2025. What's the message to them?
I think that the message is pretty basic, is what I hear from employers in 2024 and 2023 when they employ our, we call participants, is that they're absolute thrill that they employed a person that they are sure that will be in that business for many years to come, because of the sense of loyalty is very relevant to a person that just come to a different country. And that provoke a sense of belonging as well with the community, and just contact us and we will definitely start a conversation with that business, that person, and we will actually create this multicultural village that we really want, and will provide many benefits to us all.
Yeah, excellent. So Stella, thanks for coming in today and sharing this message, sharing this story for businesses across the Sunshine Coast. Obviously, the Sunshine Coast Migrant Hub through the Baringa Community Centre is one of the best ways for people to get in touch. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yep. Is there a website as well? Or
yes,
it's coming?
There is. No. There is a website that is through the Caloundra and Baringa Community Centres. So website there, you can get all the information there.
Okay, fantastic. So for you guys watching, listening, hopefully that's inspired you to think differently about whoever you're employing in 2025 as you move forward in your business. And look at the migrant workforce here on the Sunshine Coast as a great possibility for you as well. Reach out to Stella Romagnoli and the team at the Caloundra and Baringa Community Centre. And don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss another episode of the Coast and Commerce podcast. Stella, thanks for joining me on the show.
Thank you very much, Ben. It was a pleasure.
Okay, see you guys.